Welcome to Taste Buds. I'm Debra Eckerling, goal strategist, writer, and foodie. And today I'm speaking with Beth Ricanati, who's the author of Braided. Beth and I met several years ago when I was doing my Jewish bucket list and we did challah making. Welcome, Beth. So good to see you.
Thank you. It's a treat to be here with you.
What have you been up to?
Deb, it's incredible. As you know, I've been making challah for a long time, north of 15 years. The book Braided that you just mentioned, Exhibit A, the book came out in the fall of 2018, and I had started giving book talks and you know doing what one does when one has a book come out. And then COVID happened. And it obviously upended everything for all of us. And for me, it upended being in person, making challah with people. But fortunately, we have kitchens, and I was able to um, pretty quickly transition to doing virtual workshops based on the teachings in the book. And I did that all through COVID. Now, luckily, I'm back doing it in person, traveling around the country. And what I really love, I've probably done 100 of these, Deb. And what I really love now is that I'm working not only with Jewish organizations, which of course is so important, but I'm actually working with non Jewish organizations as well. And particularly since October 7, for me, it has been so meaningful, so resonant to be able to build community during this time. It's been very difficult, obviously, for so many of us since then, and to take this beautiful ancient ritual and be with others, literally making bread and breaking bread. I have found so much meaning in that. So when you ask, what have I been doing? Not necessarily what I'd planned. I'm a physician by day, but this has been an incredibly impactful time for me.
I am so happy to hear that you're getting even more fulfillment now because even when we
Yeah.
met several years ago, you were really loving it. And I feel like we need to backtrack because we both know what braided is, but why don't you share with other people what is braided
Yeah.
and how did it come about?
So that's a great question. Thank you. Yeah. Um, so I'm a physician. I'm a mom of 3 kids, and I was pretty stressed out, and I probably had physician burnout, honestly, before that was a moniker that we used. And I was fortunate enough when a girlfriend suggested I make challah for the Jewish New Year, gosh, probably 17 or 18 years ago now. And at the risk of some hyperbole, Deb, it changed my life because there I stood at my kitchen counter, not this one, but in Ohio, and I just stopped. When you're mixing flour and sugar and watching the yeast bubble, and you can't be doing anything else, right? You're not on your phone. I wasn't worrying about my patients. I wasn't worrying about my kids. I just was trying to figure out how much oil and how much, like, who does, like, I had never worked with yeast. I had no idea. But it was utterly transformative to have freshly baked challah that Friday night for Shabbat. And before I knew it, I had literally changed everything around so that I could continue to make challah every Friday. And in the process, I learned so many just wonderful lessons that's what became the genesis for the book. That's what became Braided. And as I mentioned, that came out in 2018. And since then, this whole new world of doing challah workshops based on that. So based on the ideas of being present and being mindful, of living with intention and purposely thinking about community, especially now, has just been so impactful for me. And I think, based on what people tell me, I think for those that I have an opportunity to work with as well.
Well, there's definitely power in taking that break. And this is what I love so much about cooking is you can't be connected to anything other
Right,
than what it is that
right.
you are cooking.
We're so good at taking care of everybody else, and we sometimes forget to take care of ourselves. And the great thing about food, about challah, is it's an opportunity take care of ourselves, to continue taking care of other people, because that's what we do, but also to take care of ourselves too. And I just love challah in particular because it's we both know it's not just bread that nourishes us physically, but it does nourish us spiritually as well. So you're really getting a bang for your buck, so to speak, and that I love.
And for you, challah has changed your life how many times now? So it
Yeah,
was the first time because it actually physically changed your life,
yeah,
but then it keeps changing your life over and over again because you get to share this gift.
yeah,
So how is
yeah.
that working for you, my friend?
Oh, it's working. It's working really well. People keep reaching out to me, and it's so encouraging when I get, a DM on Instagram or I get an email from someone and just out of the blue, thanking me for this gift. And I think, wow, okay, like I'll keep doing this. Um, it's really nourishing for me. And I found this year really, really stressful. And I really appreciated the opportunity to just be at a kitchen counter, or it wasn't even necessarily in a kitchen when I was, I don't often actually teach in a kitchen. You don't need a kitchen to do this, but just to be, in a space with a whole variety of people who bring their own stories and their own background and ideas to the table, and we sort of braid all that in together. And gosh, that's amazing.
And so since October 7th, what has changed in the hollow world of you?
A couple of things for starters. In addition to make trying really purposely to make challah with all different people, every week when I make challah, I set an intention, and usually, um, well, it runs the gamut. It can be my kids had a test that we somebody had a test at school that week, or but it can be bigger. It can be if a friend of mine is sick and I'm thinking about them. But in particular, since October 7, I always include the hostages, for example, and I think about the IDF soldiers, and I'm so grateful to them. And so I think it elevates just my experience of making the dough that week, because I'm taking it just to that whole other place. And I feel good about that. I'm always telling people when I teach, don't just think it, but say it. And even if you're alone in the kitchen and you look ridiculous, like it doesn't matter. When you put it out, I'm sure it helps. I mean, well, we know, there's medical research. We know that when you pray for strangers, like there's benefit. I mean, they've actually studied. It's called intercessory prayer, and they've looked at patients who've been prayed for. And you don't necessarily know, like it helps. Like when you just put out those good thoughts. So I think it helps in this case too, and I think the challah tastes a little better.
I love that this isn't just a Jewish thing. I mean, it's a
No.
Jewish thing, but it's beyond. So what sort of response have you been getting?
I have been getting an extraordinarily positive response, and I have to say it's given me a lot of hope, because in the beginning, in the first few months, I was not in a great headspace. Last fall, like just post October 7, I really wasn't in a great headspace, and I have to say that and maybe it's well, I'll think about the right word, but I'm actually inspired when I work with um, non-Jews in particular, and some of whom don't even know what challah is, as when we actually start a workshop. Um, but just to be side by side, as opposed to reading something in the newspaper or seeing it on TV, or that's so abstract, and we read about different people's reactions, or we'll go down a rabbit hole on social media, but those aren't individual people. When you're standing next to someone and your hands are literally in a bowl of dough, you can really come together and talk, and it's a question of humanity, right? And wanting the best for each other, but the best for our neighbor. And so I find this practice to be really affirming, actually. And so I keep doing it.
How do the people who aren't Jewish find you? and your challah classes?
Usually it's word of mouth, quite frankly. So it's either, I went back to my medical school. I'm going to be working with a pluralistic Jewish school in Irvine this fall for 5 different sessions. And 50% of the school is not Jewish. So that's going to be really interesting. So it just depends. I was at a health and wellness resort up in Santa Barbara. Actually, for the last 2 Decembers, I'm going back this December, and it's really fun because it's right before both Hanukkah and Christmas, and so it's a really fun time. And usually, at least half the group, if not more, are not Jewish, and it's fun to be able to share our tradition in that way as well. And
Well,
challah is such it's like a gateway food. I mean, everybody loves challah, right? I mean, challah French toast is
the
ubiquitous,
best.
the
It
best.
is the best food on the planet,
But
honestly.
my new one, have you ever made challah croutons? I had not
No.
thought to do that. But that's a new one we're doing at our house. Oh, they're really good. Leftover challah, toasted because it's, like a 2-day-old challah, I don't think is that yummy, but toasted with a little olive oil and garlic and then tossed in the salad. Oh, yum. Yeah. So
Oh,
there are
that
lots of
sounds so
lots
good.
of fun. And in fact, actually, that's one of the things I really like to do when I'm making challah with whomever is to talk about um, their own traditions and their own heritage, and maybe they like savory or they like sweet because like I was with somebody who's from Venezuela, and there was this particular food that she grew up with there, and she paired it with her challah. Or some people like to add in a special filling because it makes them think of something in their past. So it's a really fun way to also to no pun intended, but maybe pun intended, but to braid together our different backgrounds.
Well, you get to use that pun as much as you want because
Thank you.
that is the name of your book. I love that the
Yeah,
word just keeps spreading through the work that you're doing because food is very non-denominational.
we all have to eat, right? And every tradition has a tradition around, I think, coming together, breaking bread, and fellowship, and being uh, in community with each other.
I love the challah French toast, obviously, best food
Yeah.
ever. What other things, beside croutons
Yes.
do you make with your challah?
Well, the sky's the limit, but our favorites are. I like white beans, for example. So like I'll do a white bean and kale, like a stewed white bean dish on a toasted challah, for example. That's really good. I like challah croutons. I like challah French toast. Um, it makes a great bread pudding. I'm not a big maker of bread pudding, but I've been told. I've had people send me their photos. In fact, I have a friend who makes bread pudding for Christmas, a Christian friend, and now makes it with challah to serve on Christmas. Like it's just so fun. I love that.
I love that too. It's the universal bread. Was there any indication when you were younger that you would have this affinity to baking?
No, no, and I must admit I'm really not a baker. I mean, I'm squarely I'm a physician, not a baker. I mean, I make one other sort of bakery type. I make a cake, but that's yeah, no, no. There really wasn't. I've always loved to cook. I mean, I'm obsessed with healthy eating, and that actually comes from my medical background. I'm an internist by training, and when I was in Cleveland, my last role at the Cleveland Clinic, I was medical director for a lifestyle modification program that was focused on nutrition, exercise, and stress management. So I became really, really aware of the power of food as medicine. And so, certainly from that point of view, it doesn't surprise me that I would lean into making bread challah from scratch because I love to know what I'm actually eating. And I used to joke with, I still sometimes joke with people, if you go to the grocery store and you buy a loaf of just sandwich bread and you turn it around and you read the ingredients. It's a list, Deb, that's a mile long, and I can't even pronounce half the words. I don't want to put that in my body. But challah, flour, sugar, salt, eggs, yeast, and oil. That's it. And I know what they all are. And there's not that much of them anyway. I mean, it's a very healthy-ish
If
food.
you're going to have a carb,
Yeah.
it may as
And
well be challah.
yeah, it's okay. And everything in almost everything in moderation, I think is a good thing. And I certainly subscribe to that myself. I tell my patients that. I tell my kids that. I mean, I really do believe that. So I guess, yeah, it does make sense. Taking my bent medically to why I would lean into this so much. And the other piece is, so it was exercise, stress management, and nutrition was that program. And the stress management piece is really what I've glommed onto as well with making challah, because every week, right before I knead the dough, so I've mixed all the ingredients, I've got the blob of dough. Just before I knead it, I stop and I take 3 deep breaths. And it is so unbelievable what happens when you stop and take 3 deep breaths and you just immediately calm down. You've kicked in that uh, vagal nerve, that autonomic nervous system response that just, like, you just calm down. And I love that. So, yeah, I guess you could say that my background did prepare me, not in the traditional sense. I didn't grow up, making cakes and cookies and all of that, but it was more the what I had gotten from my medical background, probably, that makes the most sense as to why I really look forward to this every week. And even when I'm traveling, I usually make challah as well. I really love it. And then, of course, when you sit around the table, and you break bread,
Right?
it's a whole nother opportunity to have a conversation. And one thing I love to do, we call it challah diplomacy. I love to share so I make 2 challahs at least every week. Now I usually make more. And it's so much fun then to give it away. And then that also prompts a conversation, and it's an opportunity.
It's like the perfect form of exercise, literally. What you were talking before, you're talking about exercise and stress management and
Yeah.
mental health, but it sounds to me like challah making takes care of almost all three of them.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. And I don't use a bread machine or what. I mean, I'm making it with my hands. So yes.
Oh, so it is exercise.
There
I
you
love
go.
that.
Exactly. It's like,
Who knew?
my arm workout. Yeah.
Do you have any final food for thought, whether it's on challah making or just the value of keeping connection through food?
I think we all have to have a way to keep connection, and I definitely love the idea of using food that is resonant with you, like that has meaning for yourself. I think is so special because you can really then speak to it, which is fun, and you share a part of yourself, which I really like. Yeah.
Is there something you know now that you wish you knew when you first started this whole challah baking extravaganza journey as part of your life?
I had no idea how much fun it was going to be, and I had no idea that how much it would impact my life and that I would essentially pivot from a traditional career and really lean into this. And I'm so grateful that I've been able to do that.
It's amazing. Thank you so much, Beth, for joining me today. Where can people learn more about you and Braided?
I have a website. It's my name. So it's bethrickanattimd.com. And I have an Instagram and a Facebook. And the book is available where books are sold. So independent bookstores, Amazon, wherever. And I'm definitely reachable. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you again, Beth, so much for this. And thank you for tuning in to Taste Buds with Deb. Don't miss an episode. You can subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, and or your favorite podcast network. And you can go to jewishjournal.com/podcast to read the articles that go with each episode. And I have a very sneaking suspicion there will be a challah recipe in this article from this conversation with Beth. You can also learn more at tastebudswithdeb.com. Break some bread. Enjoy the experience of challah. Until next time, bon appetit.